On the day they first met, Yokoya was still sleeping soundly in his untidy room when the doorbell chimed, effectively forcing him out of bed. When he opened the door to see who it was, he found a woman who was a dead ringer for Violet Evergarden, except for her dark hair, and she was there to offer her services as his personal attendant. Yokoya then lets her in, and she steps in with elegance and composure. Yokoya eyes her suspiciously, convinced she's either about to rob him or sell him some car warranty. He casually asks about her resume, expecting generic maid duties, but instead, she drops a bomb that she used to be an assassin, with a complicated connection that connects her to Yokoya's mother. To change the subject, he asks about her assassination methods, and she agrees to a demonstration. Outside, she expertly throws knives to a tree, and she's proud of her skill set, but Yokoya tells her she's a bit overqualified to be a maid who does his laundry, so he rejects her. While disappointed, she accepts the rejection, apologizes, and leaves the house. As she walks away, Yokoya drops to his knees, overwhelmed. That's when he notices something she left behind. Meanwhile, the maid walks aimlessly, half hoping Yokoya will come after her. Just as she reaches the train tracks, Yokoya calls out, bell in hand, but she notices Truck-kun is coming to clap Yokoya's life. However, she teleports like lightning and saves him. Flustered, she apologizes, saying that saving people isn't something she's used to. Yokoya then hands her back the bell, and thanks her. As she turns to leave again, Yokoya calls out for her, asking for help with house cleaning. Back home, Yokoya watches in horror as she unpacks a deadly collection of knives. She chatters on about how her blades have multiple uses, but Yokoya clarifies that he needs someone to take out trash, not dead bodies. She asks if chores are truly all he expects her to do, and Yokoya tells her that it is. An hour later, Yokoya returns to see water everywhere, a mop snapped in two, and her standing there, drenched with a bucket on her head. She starts apologizing but suddenly slips, only to recover mid-air and stick her landing. He realizes just how clumsy she is, but Yokoya gently removes the bucket, hands her a towel, and tells her it's okay to learn, and she nods sweetly. Hours later, the place sparkles, and Yokoya praises her for it, which makes her smile. Then, at dinner, he asks if she can cook. She looks down, embarrassed that she can't, but he reassures her that he'll cook, and she can relax. In the bath, she reflects on Yokoya and her strange, growing feelings for him. Meanwhile, Yokoya is wrestling with the fact that a deadly yet awkward maid is bathing just meters away from him. He fantasizes she'll step out in nothing but towels, but to his disappointment, she returns fully dressed, and dinner begins. She admits she's never cared much for food, as eating was always just survival for her, but Yokoya insists that one bite of the pork cutlet will change her mind. Just then, he realizes he doesn't know her name. She tells him she doesn't have one, so Yokoya considers suggesting a name but holds off for now. Then, she tries the pork, and a strange feeling hits her. She says it's delicious and warm, both the food and Yokoya himself. He notices her portion lacks sauce, so he shares some tonkatsu sauce on her cutlet. And when she takes another bite, her face lights up with pure joy at the taste, and for a moment, life is beautiful. That night, Yokoya wakes up from a nightmare in tears and feels his stomach growling. He heads to the kitchen and finds the maid there, caught red-handed gobbling tonkatsu sauce. She apologizes, admitting that she might be addicted, and he laughs it off and offers a midnight snack. As they eat, she asks about his nightmares, admitting that she heard him groaning in his room. When she checked on him, she found him crying in his sleep, a broken boy calling for his mother. He's mortified, and she tries to lift the mood by sharing a bizarre dream where the sauce spoke to her and offered eternal comfort, which is the first dream she's ever wanted to stay in, unlike her usual dreams of chopping heads. Then she expresses how sad she is that she can't help him with his own pain. Yokoya opens up, saying he always dreams of being abandoned, and he admits he sometimes wishes he could wake up lying on someone's lap again. Moved, she offers hers. When he initially declines, she feels darkness creeping in, thinking she's only good at taking lives. But then, without a word, he lies down. Yokoya stares at her, sees her looking back, and slowly drifts to sleep on her lap, feeling warm and safe for the first time in a long while. Deep inside, she doesn't understand why her heart raced when she saved Yokoya, as it was different from all the times she had taken lives, where her body moved on instinct, not calculation. The next morning, she slices the trash down with precise, lightning-fast movements, bagging it efficiently. When Yokoya asks why she's playing Fruit Ninja with his recyclables, she casually explains that it saves space, and he expresses how impressed he is by her strange but effective ways. Just then, their morning gets disturbed when they discover a scruffy little dog outside their gate. Next to it is a letter, a desperate message from someone claiming he got broke and dumped the dog on Yokoya, assuming he's rich enough to care for it. Yokoya groans, but in the end, he can't abandon it, so he plans to bring it inside. On the other hand, the maid isn't moved by the dog's helplessness. She believes that rescuing it out of pity might cripple its instincts, making it reliant and weak. She asks him seriously if he's ready to take responsibility, and Yokoya doesn't flinch. He shrugs and replies that she didn't save him out of pity either, but it was because something inside her couldn't ignore it. His words land harder than a Mike Tyson punch, and the maid stares at him, silent, and he continues that he knows what abandonment feels like, so he won't let the dog go through it. Later, as Yokoya bonds with the pup, the maid remains distant, watching from afar as if it carries a disease. When Yokoya encourages her to try petting it, she stiffens, stiffens, awkwardly shifting away, and it dawns on him that she's afraid. Embarrassed, she admits she would touch it if her master commanded her, and Yokoya gently reassures her he'd never force that. When he asks about her fear, she reveals that one of her assassin trials involved surviving in a mountain overrun by feral, vicious dogs, and the experience left deep scars. Yokoya sympathizes and says it's a shame she can't help with the puppy, but the word shame stings more than she expects. With a deep breath and trembling arms, she asks to try holding it, but when the tiny pup is in her hands, she cradles it like a live bomb and shakes uncontrollably. He asks her what frightens her most, and she points to the claws, the teeth, the eyes, but Yokoya just smiles and says he sees a mochi. She doesn't understand the comparison, but suddenly, the dog nibbles her finger and she panics, nearly throwing it away to doggy heaven. After calming down, they realize the puppy is teething. They head to the vet and Yokoya handles the checkup, while the maid goes shopping for dog supplies. When they regroup, both man and dog are touched by how thoughtful she's been. Later, on a gentle walk under the fading afternoon light, the maid confesses that Yokoya is unlike any master she's known. She tells him her previous ones only cared about missions and efficiency, and failure wasn't tolerated. But with Yokoya, she experiences a kind master who is patient and soft in ways that confuse her. She asks to stay in his world, a world where warmth exists, where mistakes aren't fatal, and survival doesn't depend on taking lives. She wants to become someone worth keeping around in his world, and Yokoya replies with the truth to her that she doesn't want to be an assassin anymore, and she simply wants to be a normal girl. It's a truth she never dared think aloud, as murder was all she knew, but now she sees that maybe there's more. He admits he was terrified of her at first, but now, he sees her as just a good girl who's rough around the edges, sure, but someone who's trying, and that simple phrase, good girl, shakes something inside her. She quietly asks if he'll help her learn to become one, and he agrees, and tells her that she should learn how to forgive herself when she messes up. The next morning, the dog wakes up to the sound of her practicing knife skills on cabbage. She wants to make okonomiyaki because she wants to pair it with that sauce she adores. But suddenly, the dog somehow sneaks up on her undetected, causing her to get hostile, suspecting she's a spy dog. Suddenly its belly grumbles. She realizes that it is hungry, so she feeds it, watching as it devours the food with joy. As she reaches out to pet it, Yokoya walks in and she pulls her hand back instinctively. Yokoya scoops up the dog, rubs its pudgy stomach, and declares that they're naming it Mochi, which the maid thinks is a beautiful name. Then, he compliments her cooking efforts and her initiative with the dog, twirling her gently and calling her amazing, which makes her blush at the unexpected praise. Mochi starts bouncing around, eager to play. Yokoya excuses himself to prep dinner, and the maid says she'll watch Mochi at his place, as she wants to be the kind of person who sees Mochi the way Yokoya does. A joyful bundle of energy, not a threat. With trust burning bright in her heart, she reaches out to Mochi. She pets his fur, traces his little paws, and lets out a quiet laugh. Slowly, she realizes the fear fades, and the same as Yokoya learned to trust her, she's learning to trust this little nugget. At dinner, she tries the okonomiyaki she made with the sauce and instantly melts with joy. Yokoya offers seconds, and she assures him that she's full, but her glowing face says otherwise. He tells her to just ask if she wants something, and seizing the moment, she asks him for something unexpected, a name. He's surprised but smiles and asks for her birthday. She explains that she doesn't know when it is, but that it was winter. In that moment, Yokoya gets a name in his head and names her Yuki, like the snow. She freezes, recalling how one of her old masters called her cold-blooded, comparing her to winter itself. But Yokoya sees snow differently. To him, it's soft, beautiful, and protective. It also covers the land, shelters the seeds, and helps life bloom. His words stir a quiet warmth in her, and she remembers building a snowman long ago, before she became who she is now. And for the first time, snow doesn't feel cold, but it feels like home. She sees that in his strange little world, maybe she can become someone new, someone warmer, so she smiles, and Yokoya sees it, so he smiles back. Days later, Yuki is spending her time in the courtyard, tossing a toy for Mochi, when Yokoya pops up with an unusual request, asking Yuki to help him pierce his ear, seeing that she has her ears pierced. Yuki agrees without hesitation, but as she places the piercing blade near his ear, her hands begin to tremble. She pulls back, distressed by the idea of harming her own master, even if it's consensual. Just then, the doorbell rings. Yuki answers it and finds a girl, Riko, standing there, blinking at her with visible confusion, wondering who she is. The next moment, Riko marches into the house like she owns it, and her eyes scan Yuki from head to toe, refusing to believe that such a bombshell of a babe is willing to be a maid to a useless bum like Yokoya, and asks him why he didn't tell her or the family. Yokoya groans, and tells her that if their mom finds out, she would go ballistic, and he also didn't tell their father about Yuki, knowing he'll be worried that Yokoya might get freaky. Riko remains unimpressed, still not convinced by his excuses to shut her mouth from telling their parents. Curious, Yuki asks why the siblings live separately, but Riko ignores the question, as her attention is now fully on Yuki, and she blurts out how pretty she is. Yokoya mutters that Riko has a thing for attractive people, while she hates the ugly ones, just like the people watching the video. As things calm down, Riko learns that Yokoya gave Yuki her name and is shocked by that. Yuki nods and, without hesitation, expresses how before she came there, she didn't have a name and was just an assassin, but that changed when Yokoya gave her the name Yuki. Riko glitches after hearing that she's an assassin, but gets excited quickly, begging Yuki to sign her notebook. Yuki agrees, and Riko praises how she looks classy even when writing, but to their surprise, the result looks more like chicken scratch than a signature. Yuki explains that while she can speak 12 languages, she has never studied handwriting. Suddenly, Riko has an idea and declares that Yuki become her summer research project, wanting to know more about an assassin who turned into a maid. Yokoya protests at this idea, but Riko ignores him and pleads with Yuki directly, begging her to show some of her coolest moves. With a nod, Yuki agrees, and in the backyard, Riko balances an apple on her head so Yuki can show off her skills. In a flash, Yuki flicks a blade that stucks into the apple, and Riko is in awe while Yokoya watches in horror. Then Riko asks her where she keeps her blades, and she explains that she used to carry 16, but now she carries 5, which are hidden all around her body, from her melons to her cheeks. She begins to reach toward a hidden one beneath, but Yokoya cuts her off, not wanting this video to get banned.
Psych!
Later, Riko's barrage of questions is interrupted by sound of her stomach growling, and she asks Yuki if she has a specialty dish. Yuki tells her that she does, but chops cabbage and serves it on a plate as her dish. Still hungry, they head out to grab some fast food, and there, they spot a poster for a summer festival. Yokoya points out that there's a stall that sells some sauce-covered crackers, and the moment Yuki hears this, she lights up and starts drooling. At the festival, Riko drags Yuki to a shooting game, but despite her assassin background, Yuki admits she's terrible with firearms and proves it by missing every shot. But at the goldfish game, she shines, catching several with ease, and even takes the time to show Riko her technique. The booth attendant praises her, calling her a natural big sister. Then, they finally find the sauce-covered rice crackers. Yuki takes one bite and practically busts right there. The vendor, amused by her joy, gives her extras and Yuki starts tweaking with delight. Riko heads off to get drinks, and Yokoya tries to follow, but she assures him she'll be fine. While waiting, Yokoya asks Yuki if she's ever been to a festival before, and she responds quietly that she once had a mission at a festival where she had to assassinate someone, all the while the fireworks was on site but she couldn't enjoy it. But now, the night sky erupts in color, and Yuki gazes upward in awe by the shimmering light. Riko then returns, hands them the drinks and join them watching the festival, which Yuki enjoys. Later, on their way home, a scream suddenly cuts through the air from a robbery. A motorbike zooms past, nearly knocking Riko over, but Yuki reacts instantly, yanking her back to safety. Riko blushes hard, overwhelmed by being princess carried, but Yokoya stares at the spilled sauce on the ground and says that whoever did this deserves to rot. Yuki takes those words literally and disappears in a blur, knives in hand. Riko, thrilled, urges her brother to follow so she can see the female John Wick in action. They chase after Yuki, who's running across rooftops like an acrobat, and Riko finds a shortcut. They eventually catch up, just as Yuki brings down the motorbike with a pinpoint throw, blow up the tires. She approaches the dazed thief, eyes cold, knives in hand, but before she can strike, Yokoya begs her to stop, and she pauses, then casually flicks the guy's helmet, which is enough to scare his cheeks off. Yuki then says that she's hungry again, and relieved, Yokoya promises that they buy more sauce. Afterward, Riko is giddy about showing off her summer project about Yuki at school, and curious, Yuki asks her what school is. Riko begins a passionate monologue about how great school is, and just then, she gets a text from their mom saying, "Dinner's ready." Riko sprints home in excitement, and Yuki turns to Yokoya, saying that she wants to try school too. The next morning, Yokoya heads to class, unsure if Yuki can handle her new school life. His friends run up to him talking about a rumor of a Kirby maid in town, but he denies everything, calling it a hoax. Suddenly, the classroom door slides open, and standing there, in full uniform, is Yuki. The room goes silent, while Yokoya is in shock. Then, Yuki introduces herself as Yokoya's cousin, and the teacher orders her sit in front of Yokoki, but when she takes a seat, she shocks everyone when she calls Yokoya her master. After school, Riko pops up to check in about their day, and Yokoya, though expressionless, quickly realizes Riko orchestrated Yuki's arrival, and she smugly celebrates the success of her plan. On the walk home, Riko brags about Yuki's quick learning, claiming she mastered everything about school life within 3 days, before even enrolling. Yokoya questions how Yuki managed to conveniently ends up in the same class, same school, and now shares a family connection with him. They explain that Yuki pulled some strings from her previous life as an assassin to secure enrollment in both the school and his class, but it was Riko's idea to make her his cousin, and it was also Riko's idea to keep it a secret from Yokoya, just to make him suffer. Annoyed, Yokoya lightly bops her on the head, but Yuki, feeling guilty, asks if she's done something wrong. He quickly softens and assures her he doesn't mind, hoping the two of them can enjoy school life together. The next day, students rush out of class to get their hands on the elusive Katsuta bread. Yuki becomes intrigued, and when asked what she wants for lunch, she chooses the bread. Yokoya warns her that it's more rare than dads who come home after buying milk.
Hey, want to see an impression of my dad?
Sure. Comedy.
And their classroom is the farthest from the cafeteria. He even sketches a map for her to illustrate the odds. But Yuki is fired up and she boldly declares that she will get her hands on it. With confidence, she leaps out the window and races across the rooftop rails like a ninja, ignoring Yokoya's calls to stop. He watches helplessly, realizing her eyes now burn with an intensity only food can bring, an unstoppable force, rivaling even Aaron's desire to get freedom. When he looks down, Yokoya spots the mob charging toward the cafeteria to get the Katsuta bread. Yokoya panics, worried that Yuki's true nature might get exposed. But just before she drops down, she maneuvers midair and lands directly in front of the cafeteria line without anyone seeing her. However, she returns sad with a single Katsuta bread and a random sandwich, telling Yokoya the store only allows one of each. Yokoya hands her the Katsuta bread, offering it without hesitation. Yuki protests, insisting he eat it, but he reassures her that she earned it. Then, the moment she takes a bite, sheer happiness overtakes her. But she still splits the sandwich in half, feeding a piece to Yokoya so they can share the joy. That night, Riko announces that she's spending the night with them, and Yokoya isn't thrilled, but Riko flips the situation, pointing out his luck of living with Yuki and her sweet cheeks. She says she always dreamed of having a sister she could gush about boys with, and even used to imagine Yokoya as her ugly-looking sister. But now, she gets the idea that if he marries Yuki, her dream becomes reality, and she claims Yuki might even like him. Yokoya rejects the idea, insisting Yuki doesn't experience romantic emotions, and he recalls when she made him gobble on bread without reacting at all. Riko isn't convinced, and she figures their mother might approve of the union, but their father definitely wouldn't. Just then, Yuki enters and overhears the conversation. Curious, she asks who's getting married, and Riko blurts the truth and directly asks Yuki if she likes Yokoya. Yuki replies that she admires him, causing Yokoya's brain to short-circuit. Later, the trio relax together. Riko, amazed by Yuki's appearance, asks if she wears makeup, but Yuki reveals that she doesn't. Riko says her face is what other women envy of, but Yuki admits her looks never helped her in her former job. Riko reflects that she's never been told she's pretty, aside from her parents, but then Yuki compliments her, saying she genuinely likes Riko's face, and that compliment hits deeply. Riko wonders if she can ever match Yuki's looks, and Yuki credits her glowing skin to tonkatsu sauce, and offers Riko a piece of her tonkatsu glazed melon. Riko hesitates, but ends up loving it. Watching their warm interaction, Yokoya reflects that they're like sisters, and he credits Riko for helping Yuki adapt so well to normal life. Noticing his thoughtful expression, Riko teases him, accusing him of fantasizing about marrying Yuki just to witness more of these moments. He tries to deny it, but when Riko asks if he would be happy marrying someone as beautiful as Yuki, he admits he would. The same goes with all dudes. Riko lights up with satisfaction, but unbeknownst to them, a mysterious cat lurks in the bushes. The next day during class, the teacher begins a boring lecture about, causing Yokoya to doze off. Suddenly, the teacher yeets a piece of chalk at him, but in a flash, Yuki slices it midair, unnoticed by everyone. However, the chalk powder ends up in Yokoya's eyes, blinding him, which is not the outcome Yuki hoped for. Yokoya is sent to the infirmary, where he meets the new nurse, Nida, an outrageously busty, goon-worthy substitute nurse. Her presence gives off a strange energy.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
And as she checks his eyes, she asks him about Yuki. When Yokoya mentions Yuki as his cousin, Nida laughs, saying he looks ugly in comparison. Suddenly, her tone shifts, and while rizzing him up, she checks his vitals and then locks the door. She pushes him onto the bed, looming over him with her charm, tempting to wake up his Slim Jim. But just before she can bump bellies with him, Yuki bursts in and stares daggers at Nida. Yokoya scrambles behind Yuki, shaken by almost getting himself creamed. Nida casually claims she was joking, saying she just finds it funny how he turns into a panicked hamster around her. Then, when she tries luring him again, Yuki pulls him back and orders Nida to never approach Yokoya ever again. Yokoya suddenly remembers Riko's theory that maybe Yuki does like him, and that she's jealous. Nida grows tired of the scene and kicks them out, saying the injury is minor anyway. As Yuki walks him out, she apologizes and says there's something he needs to know. Yokoya's heart races in anticipation, but instead of a confession, she reveals something shocking, that Nida is an assassin too. Meanwhile, the cat who had been lurking earlier comes up to Nida, delivering images of Yokoya's home, and with a murderous grin, Nida begins plotting her next move. Nida dreams of a carefree life by the ocean, surrounded by a heavy rotation of attractive, sweaty men. But before she can chase that fantasy, she must eliminate two targets, Yokoya and Yuki. Meanwhile, Yokoya can't sleep, as Yuki stays glued to his side, worried that Nida, still a mysterious threat to both of them, might strike without warning and take out Yokoya when Yuki is not looking. Despite Yokoya's complaints that he can't sleep under such tension, Yuki lies beside him with a bold offer that she can help him relax using her smoother-than-butter thighs. Yokoya, however, is more concerned that Yuki might be the target, and Yuki gets flustered by that idea. Yuki reassures him that, even in her sleep, she's more than capable of handling Nida using only one hand. She suspects Nida has a personal grudge from the past, but holding his hand firmly, she promises to protect him, the person who brought light and warmth into her cold world. Feeling overheated from all the hand-holding, Yokoya considers opening a window, but Yuki stops him. She opens it herself, warning that he might get sniped from afar if he's not cautious. Just as the cool air drifts in, Yuki catches the smell of something too familiar, katsuta sauce. It's a trap, and before she can react, Nida appears, already inside, and grabs Yokoya as a hostage. Nida reveals Yuki's real identity, Shui, the white wolf of the dragon's 9 offspring, and mocks her for falling into such a simple trick. Yuki readies her weapon, but Nida threatens to use Yokoya in the most brutal way if she resists. Yuki snaps into a different gear, spouting a fierce warning in Mandarin, swearing vengeance on Nida and her entire bloodline if she harms him. This sends a shiver down Nida's spine, and she declares a challenge to Yuki in the form of a duel at school, while Yokoya will be the bait. After they leave, Yuki remembers her old mentor's words that she's nothing but an assassin without the luxury of a happy ending. Accepting that truth, she draws her blade, fully resolved to rescue Yokoya even if it means returning to the path she tried to leave behind. Her heart, however, craves more than survival. It wants the peaceful life she has with Yokoya. At school, Nida ties up Yokoya in a half-kinky, half-creepy way and tries to scare him, but his calm demeanor catches her off guard. When asked if he resents Yuki for dragging him into this, he admits that he feels scared, but he trusts her. He even asks about this Shui figure, which shocks Nida, and she finds it bizarre that someone living with Yuki doesn't know her true nature. She explains that Shui isn't just some assassin, but she's a legend, the White Wolf, a warrior born from a bloodline of elite assassins, the dragon's 9 offspring, who've influenced history itself. From assassinations of world leaders to the death of your next-door neighbor, the dragon's 9 offspring are involved, and Nida believes that defeating Shui will elevate her status in that world. Yokoya, however, refuses to accept that Yuki is the cold-hearted murderer Nida describes. To him, she's the sweet girl who loves getting excited over little things and often loses herself in silly fun. Nida confesses her frustration at seeing someone like Shui softened by thoughts of marriage, admitting it makes her want to destroy everything they've built. Still, she acknowledges that something about Yokoya must be special if he could warm a heart as frozen as Yuki's. Nida believes love makes people weak, and that's why she's confident she can finally take Shui down. Suddenly, Yuki arrives. Nida opens fire, but Yuki deflects the bullets like it's child's play. Nida then triggers a hidden mine, believing the blast will finish her opponent, but Yuki emerges, unscathed and ready to strike. Nida narrowly dodges, and as Yuki reassures Yokoya that he will be saved, Nida becomes enraged. She rants about Yuki's past and how it will ruin her if Yokoya finds out, but Yuki shuts her down, stating she's more concerned about Yokoya's sleep schedule and school responsibilities. Nida, growing more irritated, demands to know why Yuki keeps talking about Yokoya, only to be further annoyed when Yuki starts rambling about friends and favorite sauces. With her patience gone, Nida reveals an arsenal of hidden snipers aimed at Yokoya, threatening to reduce his limbs to ashes if he moves. Yuki has finally had enough. She charges, startling Nida, who activates the traps. But Yuki, using a combination of reflexes and precision, flings a blade to the sky, throws smaller ones to intercept the bullets, and charges ahead. Nida tries to use backup plans, but Yuki destroys her phone with a perfectly aimed strike. As she advances, Nida starts to remember who Shui truly is, and Yuki demands that she surrender. Nida threatens Yokoya one last time, but Yuki intercepts and knocks her to the ground. Even now, Nida argues that Shui will never escape her assassin past and that others will always come after her. Yuki admits that her old self was built solely to end lives, but now she refuses to take lives or let others die because of her. She declares her intent to fight for a peaceful future is a life where she belongs. Nida, stunned, watches as the feared White Wolf chooses love over death, and she laughs, realizing she never had a chance to win. Later, on their way home, Yuki apologizes for dragging Yokoya into her dark world. She offers to disappear if he wishes, but instead of answering, Yokoya takes her hand and asks her to teach him how to defend himself, so he can protect her too. Yuki blushes, overjoyed to know that despite everything, he still wants to be by her side. A few days later, Yuki plays volleyball and dominates the school court, and while the simps are completely taken by her athleticism, they can't believe some worthless chump chump like Yokoya is her relative. Still rattled by his last encounter with Grace, formerly known as Nita, who revealed Yuki's identity as one of the dragon's 9 offspring, Yokoya becomes increasingly curious about his maid assassin. Yuki, on the other hand, continues trying to maintain a sense of normalcy in her daily life. As Yuki flashes a warm smile at Yokoya during the game, the other boys instantly get jealous. Then, a volleyball comes flying straight at him, and just before impact, Grace swoops in and saves him, leaving everyone stunned, and the boys even more jealous. She now poses as a newly transferred gym teacher, causing confusion about her sudden reappearance. Yokoya, however, takes the story back to a few weeks earlier, when Grace also introduced herself as his cousin in her true blonde-haired form. Unlike Yuki, who masters blades, Grace specializes in intelligence gathering and espionage. Yuki, skeptical and cautious, demands answers. Grace clarifies that she no longer has any intention of eliminating them. Instead, she finds herself drawn to the idea of a legendary assassin like Yuki becoming devoted to a pathetic loser like Yokoya. She proposes a ceasefire, and offers a bizarre but tempting condition that she'll keep her distance and ensure their safety in exchange for being allowed to stay and watch. She even adds that she'll provide unlimited katsuta sauce bread for 3 months, and Yuki agrees instantly. While Yokoya remains worried, Yuki assures him that Grace gains nothing by harming him. She even promises that if 1,000 enemies came after him, she'd protect him without hesitation. However, as she makes this promise, Yokoya notices her drooling and realizes it's the katsuta bread and not him that fuels her passion. Returning to the present, Yokoya reminds Grace that she's supposed to be subtle in her surveillance. She brushes it off, saying she wants to see how Yuki reacts to her getting affectionate with him. While Yuki continues spiking volleyballs with brutal force, Grace edges closer to Yokoya, playfully teasing him. The moment Yuki notices, she hurls a powerful serve that nearly breaks a wall, and instead of getting reprimanded, she's showered with praise by the girls, who admire her strength. At lunch, Yuki is embarrassed by her earlier outburst, and when Yokoya asks what's bothering her, she admits to feeling distant from him after seeing him interact with Grace. Yokoya, after speaking with Grace, realizes Yuki might be jealous, so he reassures her that her emotions are valid, and that reassurance lifts her spirits. On the weekend, Yuki begins her day as usual by changing into her maid outfit and starting the laundry. But this time, after weeks of failure, she finally succeeds in making the towels soft and fluffy, so she shows them off to Yokoya. Her joy is palpable, and Yokoya silently celebrates her small but meaningful victory, and for the first time, Yuki feels like her day starts off right. Later, when dinner prep begins, they discover that all they have is a cabbage. Yuki imagines it transformed into a glorious dish with katsuta sauce, but Yokoya decides to go out and buy pork cutlets instead. At the shop, the vendor greets them warmly, and Yuki is practically bouncing with excitement over the abundance of katsuta sauce. She asks Yokoya if he's ever felt this thrilled about something, and he recalls his childhood joy at the Hero Theater, watching a low-budget Power Ranger in action, and hearing his story helped Yuki relate a bit more. Then, watching the old man slice pork with expert precision, Yuki is amazed by his skills at his late age and wonders if he's actually a legendary assassin in the past. The grandma then shares that she and her husband invented the katsuta sauce, and Yuki sees her now as a god. Yuki is overwhelmed with gratitude, saying that for someone who never found joy in food before, this sauce gave her a taste of happiness she never knew she needed. She sincerely thanks them. The grandma tells Yuki that she's able to enjoy the food now because she's finally feeling warmth and happiness that come with it. This makes Yuki think of Yokoya, and she agrees. Then, out of nowhere, the grandpa appears behind her to dust off her shoulder, surprising her with his stealth, and Yuki becomes even more convinced that this sweet old man must actually be a retired super assassin. Before they leave, the grandma offers them a taste of her new sauce recipe. Yuki eagerly tries it, and the joy it brings has almost transferred her to the world of food war. Later that night, after dinner, Yokoya finds himself torn. He still wants to uncover the truth about the dragon's 9 offsprings, but seeing Yuki content makes him question whether it's worth digging into her past. As he falls asleep, he dreams of his mother and how she left without ever hugging him goodbye. All the while, Yokoya begged her to stay. He wakes up with tears in his eyes, clutching Yuki in his sleep. Embarrassed after realizing he is hugging her, he quickly apologizes. Yuki, understanding what the dream must have meant, offers her lap again as a pillow, trying to comfort him. But then Yokoya's phone falls. Yuki picks it up and notices that he's been researching her past. She opens up, admitting that she doesn't really know what the dragon's 9 offsprings is, as when she was an assassin, she simply followed orders from her master and never became involved in the organization itself. Although she's met others from the group, she didn't bother remembering their names, as her sole focus was always her mission and not letting her master down. Yuki admits that adjusting to this calm and joyful life still feels surreal, and sometimes she she wonders if she's dreaming. But every time she sees Yokoya, she remembers that what she truly wants is to be an ordinary girl. Yokoya relates to her feelings, and since learning about her true identity from Grace, he also wants to help her reach her goal. Yuki smiles gently, moved by his words. Blushing, Yokoya listens as she explains why she cherishes the moment he lies on her lap. The first time he did, she felt like she was finally helping someone. So, she tells him that whenever nightmares return, her lap will always be there to comfort him. Wanting to return the kindness, Yokoya confesses that his dream wasn't entirely sad, and it gave him hope because Yuki is starting to replace the warmth he once longed for. The next morning, Yuki begins her day like she always does by waking up, getting dressed, and diving into her daily routine. She takes care of the laundry, something she's finally gotten the hang of after struggling with it at first. After that, she handles the dishes, plays with Mochi, and keeps her day moving along smoothly. When the afternoon rolls around, she heads out to the market to buy groceries. As she walks through the crowd, she catches the eye of nearly every guy she passes. While picking out supplies, a little jit approaches her and compliments her appearance, saying that she wants to be just like her. At first, Yuki is flattered, but then the kid asks where she got her costume from and blurts out that her maid outfit is weird for a normal girl. The comment shocks her, and shortly after, she runs into Yokoya, who just bought some books. Still unsettled by the kid's remark, she brings it up to him, wondering if it might be true. Seeing her doubt, Yokoya decides to take her shopping for new clothes to give her some peace of mind. When they arrive at the store, they're met by Riko and Grace, who seem to have been expecting them. Riko says she came to help her brother pick something out, while Grace admits to hacking Yokoya's phone because she wanted to see Yuki in different outfits. Suspicious of Grace, Riko asks if she's also an assassin, and Grace pulls her into a hug and confirms that she is. Yokoya watches nervously, but instead of resisting, Riko starts sniffing Grace like it's white powder, clearly enjoying herself. Riko then leads the group to a shop she picked out. Yokoya expects it to be filled with subtle, more casual outfits. Instead, Yuki ends up trying on even more outrageous costumes, just so Riko can snap pictures for her own collection, while Yokoya scolds her for dragging them to such a ridiculous store. Grace sees a different store and chimes in to suggest that they go there. It's filled with clothes your filthy mothers love to wear for your dead. And when Yuki pops out, she looks like the girls who wait by the corner of a street and end happy marriages while also giving out STDs. Then, they continue browsing through different stores for different clothes, some elegant and some scandalous. When asked for his opinion, Yokoya points to a simple white one-piece dress, only for Grace to tease him for his opinion. Then, despite the chaos, they eventually wrap up their shopping trip. With Halloween around the corner, they find a Halloween store, and Riko pushes the idea of buying costumes too. Yuki ends up dressed as a witch, while Grace dresses up as a police officer straight out of a male's fantasy, which Riko approves. While waiting, Yokoya spots a horror movie poster and shares how much he enjoys those types of films. Grace and Riko think it's a great idea to go watch it together, but Yuki seems confused. When asked if she's never been to the movies, she admits that she has, but only for assassination missions. So they decide to go, and despite being a former top-tier assassin, Yuki is absolutely terrified by the zombie flick. Her fear is so intense that even reminders of her deadly skills don't calm her down. After the movie, Yuki keeps ranting about how revolting it is for the undead to walk around with rotting teeth and breath bad enough to knock out someone. It's then that Yokoya realizes that Yuki still views the world through the perspective of her assassin past. Then, they grab crepes together and enjoy a bit of peace. From a distance, a pink-haired girl named Naka watches them with jealousy, wishing she could have fun too. Her teacher and brother Tatsu pull her back and remind her to stay cautious. Later, as the group splits up, Grace heads home and Yokoya walks Riko back. Yuki meanwhile takes a scenic detour, admiring her new outfits in mirrors, but even as she enjoys them, her heart still lingers on her old maid uniform. Back in her room, she changes into it again and plays with Mochi. That's when she realizes she completely forgot to do the laundry. She notices Mochi's towel is filthy and tries to take it from him, but he refuses and blitzes off with it in his mouth. Just then, the power cuts out and the eerie lighting outside reminds Yuki of the zombie film. In the chaos, Mochi runs into a table and knocks food onto his head. The noise scares Yuki, and when she investigates the kitchen, she sees what looks like a little zombie monster. Instinctively, she grabs a knife and slices Mochi's towel, mistaking him for something else. Mochi cries over the loss of his towel, and after returning home, Yokoya finds them and questions whether the towel can even be saved. Yuki insists she can fix it, and Yokoya believes her, backing her up. Yokoya then notices that she's back in the maid outfit and asks if she dislikes the clothes they bought. Yuki says that she loves them, but the maid uniform is more than just an outfit, as it's a gift from her late master, a symbol of someone who believed in her dream to live like a normal girl. It's the only connection she has left to her past. She asks Yokoya if it's okay for her to keep wearing it, even if she doesn't look like an ordinary girl. With comforting confidence, arguments, Yokoya tells her there's nothing strange about her. Whether she's scared of zombies despite her assassin past, or wants to wear something that matters to her, none of it makes her weird. He reassures her that everyone has their quirks, and what truly matters is being herself. His words warm Yuki's heart, and Mochi barks in agreement. When Yokoya picks up Mochi, he realizes the towel is the same one they found him wrapped in. He suspects it carries the scent of Mochi's parents, and Yuki, touched by the idea, becomes even more determined to repair the towel. She mentions that just like Mochi has his towel, she has a bell that reminds her of her sister. Yokoya is surprised by the revelation, especially the idea that someone as striking as Yuki might have a sister out there with the same assassin background and just as much presence. A few days pass, and Yokoya shares a casual ramen meal with Grace, and during the meal he brings up Yuki's sister, curious about her whereabouts. Grace, uninterested in the subject, simply shrugs it off, mentioning that the only clues she knows are Yuki's surname, Hua, and the bell she always carries. When Yokoya tries to dig deeper, Grace immediately shuts him down and returns her focus to slurping her noodles. Being a foreigner who fell in love with Japanese culture, especially ramen, she treats it with utmost respect. That is, until she sees Yuki recklessly dumping katsuta sauce all over her ramen. Grace freaks out, warning Yuki not to disgrace the sacred dish like that, even going so far as to say she'll make her pay for disrespecting ramen. Yuki, however, stays unfazed and eats with pure joy, unbothered by the outburst. Later, Yuki realizes she's run out of katsuta sauce, and they head to the store for more. Unfortunately, the shopkeeper tells her it's all sold out until next week, and the news hits Yuki hard. With her supply now limited, she plans to ration what she has left. Seeing her so down, Yokoya tries to lift her spirits, and he gently asks her what she remembers about her sister. With sadness in her voice, Yuki admits that most of her memories have vanished, and she no longer remembers what her sister or even her own parents look like. The only thing she still holds on to is the bell her mother gave her and her sister. She hopes that one day, the bell might help them find each other. But 10 long years have passed with no sign of her sister, and Yuki fears she may have been forgotten, or worse, hated by her sister for abandoning her. Still, if her sister is living happily somewhere, Yuki believes that's enough. Out of nowhere, Yokoya's loud friends, Taiga and Kobachi, show up, surprised to see him hanging out with his hot babe of a cousin. Taiga proudly shows off his new CD featuring an artist who's going to perform at the Katsuta Festival, while Kobachi mocks Yokoya for ditching them and spending too much time getting freaky with his busty cousins. Taiga, on the other hand, sincerely thanks Yuki for being around, noticing that she's made Yokoya a happier guy. The two then start spilling stories about Yokoya's embarrassing past of how he used to act like an edgy anime character, thinking he could have turned into a Super Saiyan. Yokoya, clearly irritated, tries to silence Taiga, which causes the CD to slip from Taiga's hands. Yuki reacts instantly, throwing her bag to save the CD, but in the process, her precious katsuta sauce spills across the street, and she stares in horror as it spreads everywhere. That night, Yuki dreams of her beloved katsuta sauce coming to life, only to tell her that it's done with her and would rather be poured over someone else's food. The betrayal stings, and she wakes up shaken. When Yokoya walks in, Yuki tells him her life feels meaningless, knowing that the katsuta sauce hates her. She recounts the dream, where the sauce cheats on her, and Yokoya assures her that they can buy more later. Just then, she starts to mention another dream, but before she explains more, she trails off. Then, after suffering from the same nightmare repeatedly, Yuki goes to Yokoya's room one night and asks him to sleep next to her. Yokoya, trying to stay respectful, tells her he has studying to do but agrees to stay by her side. As she begins to calm down, she tells him he's a genuinely good person, which catches him off guard. She then suddenly asks if he's ever disliked anyone, and Yokoya opens up about his resentment toward his father, a feeling born from his own painful past. Hearing this strikes a chord in Yuki. Her thoughts spiral back to her sister and the bell, and overwhelmed with emotion, she retreats to her room, leaving Yokoya worried. That night, her dream takes a darker turn. The katsuta sauce not only betrays her again, but also starts mocking her for abandoning her sister and being unloved. It reminds her that her only skill is taking lives, and even her friends secretly dislike her. The dream throws her into a memory from her childhood when she was a celebrated prodigy, fluent in 15 languages with a mind like a computer. All she wanted was to make her parents proud, but on one of her birthdays, the family was celebrating when the doorbell rang. Her parents answered it and were never seen again after they were taken by assassins targeting Yuki for her abilities. After that, Yuki and her sister were left behind. Her grief and trauma stripped away her emotions, transforming her into a cold and efficient assassin. This new version of her pushed her sister away. Then, in the nightmare, her old master appears, attempting to drag her back into that life. But before anything happens, Yokoya wakes her up. Seeing how shaken she is, Yokoya gently reassures her, and Yuki responds by pulling him into a hug and into bed. Yokoya's mind briefly runs wild, thinking he's about to clap some cheeks, but she just holds onto him tightly, needing his comfort. Yokoya realizes how deeply hurt she is, and pats her back gently, giving her something to hold on to, and the sound of his heartbeat soothes her until she slowly drifts off to sleep. The next day, Yuki hears about the school's Katsuta festival and learns learns that the grand prize is a bottle of special Katsuta sauce. Her eyes light up with excitement, but Yokoya and the others explain that she'll need to win each part of the festival, including culture, sports, and music, and maintain decent grades. She shows them her recent test score, thinking it's fine, but Yokoya informs her that she needs at least 60 points to qualify, while her grade is way below that. Panicked, Yuki starts to worry, but the boys reassure her that excelling in practical exams can help. Determined, Yuki sets her mind to it. Later at lunch, Grace gives Yuki a sandwich soaked in Katsuta sauce as part of a deal they made. Yuki gratefully accepts, but Grace gets flustered and brushes everyone off. When Yokoya brings up Yuki's dream to win the festival, Grace sees a chance to make a move. She reveals a test paper with no name on it, claiming it belongs to Yuki. Realizing she forgot to write her name, Yuki panics, and Grace tells her she's failed by default, but offers a deal that if Yuki stops bringing Katsuta sauce into ramen shops, she'll let her put her name on the paper. But before Yuki gets to answer, a pink blur zips by, and the next moment, Grace sees Yuki's name magically written on the paper. As Yuki tries to explain, Yokoya quickly tells her to keep quiet and let it go. Grace storms off, defeated, and neither of them understands what just happened until they notice a pink-haired girl nearby. Naka, the one who intervened, tries to quietly slip away, but Yuki catches up and thanks her, revealing she saw Naka move at inhuman speed. Naka, now caught, gathers her nerves and tells the group that she knows how to win the Katsuta festival. The following day, inside her family dojo, Naka throws herself into training. She's pushing herself hard, sparring with others and dominating the matchups, until a misstep nearly sends her crashing. Her brother, Tatsu, catches her just in time and reminds her of the pride tied to their family name, which leaves Naka feeling guilty and frustrated. What she doesn't realize is that beneath his stern tone, Tatsu is horrifically worried about her well-being. Elsewhere, the school festival kicks off, and the main event is announced, a game of cops and robbers. Tatsu is chosen to play the cop, while all the other students take on the role of robbers. Suspicion starts to swirl around Yuki, who claims to be Yokoya's cousin. Tatsu doesn't trust her and suspects she might be an enemy, so he decides to keep a close eye on her. Meanwhile, Yokoya's class prepares for their own part of the festival, themed as an animal cafe. Behind the scenes, Naka confides in Yokoya, and she's desperate to prove herself in the game against her brother to show him she's strong in her own right. But at the same time, she's unnerved by Yuki's auraful presence, and Yokoya reassures her that they'll perform well. Suddenly, a massive Katsuta bottle costume enters the room, sending Yui into near hysteria. But they all know it's just Taiga wearing the outfit. He's feeling confident, especially with Naka and Yuki as teammates. While some have doubts about Naka's strength, she insists that she can at least outrun most people. Yuki encourages everyone, promising that with teamwork, they can defeat the unbeatable Tatsu. Unseen by them, Tatsu listens in from a corner of the cafe and grows irritated, hearing Yuki egging Naka on to challenge and defeat him. But that gives him more motivation to defeat Yuki. Later, the group discusses their strategy. Taiga declares that he'll stay in costume throughout the game to get TB exposure and become a beloved mascot. This reminds Yokoya that the match will be televised, and he wonders if Yuki is okay being on camera. Before he can ask, Riko and Kobachi arrive. Yokoya explains the game setup to Riko, who is disappointed that she won't get to see Yuki in a bunny outfit. While others are distracted by their conversation, Naka builds up the courage to ask Yuki a personal question. But nerves take over, and instead of asking if Yuki has friends, she asks if Yuki wants to be her friend. Yuki gently agrees, leaving Naka overwhelmed with joy. Yokoya then invites them to explore the festival together, but Naka has something to investigate. She leaves feeling energized, grateful to have Yuki as a friend. Determined to keep that bond no matter what she finds out about her, Naka stealthily sneaks around to eavesdrop on the game rules. But what she learns shocks her. As the event gets closer, a celebrity guest named Nazca is introduced, drawing screams from the crowd with her stunning looks. The rules are explained that Tatsu, as the cop, must catch the robbers, and the robbers win by either lasting 15 minutes without being captured, or by freeing one of their own from prison. Nazca adds a twist that each class must wear their assigned festival theme outfits, meaning Yuki's team must compete in animal costumes. Naka feels guilty for not learning the new rule earlier, but Yuki tells her it's okay, as they're friends now, and they'll face Tatsu together. Yuki's costume conveniently covers her face, which Yokoya arranged to protect her identity. Tatsu, meanwhile, is staring hard at his sister, and there's a strange emotion swirling inside him as he watches how cute his sister is. But when Naka looks away, something shifts in him and he blames Yuki in the wolf costume, identifying her as the cause of the growing distance between him and his sister. Once the game begins, Tatsu tears across the field with brutal speed, capturing students effortlessly. Soon, only the trio in animal costumes remains. Taiga, still in the Katsuta outfit, tries to be the hero of the game, but he's quickly knocked out and thrown into the prison zone. With his sights locked on Yuki, Tatsu lunges. He grabs her and tries to hurl her into the cell, but she clings to his arm, halting her momentum from being yeeted. Seeing this, Naka panics, but the memory of Yuki's friendship strengthens her. She uses her ninja techniques to intervene, tossing down smoke bombs and swapping places with Yuki. Tatsu unknowingly sends his sister flying into the jail, and the act stuns him. Yuki remains the last player standing, and inspired by Naka's sacrifice, she recalls Yokoya's words about how friends can become chosen family. Yokoya once nearly gave up on life, but it was the friendship of Taiga and Kobachi that saved him, and now Yuki feels the same toward Naka. Now, she wants to return the favor. As Tatsu reels from the realization of what just happened, Yuki prepares her final move. She stays mindful of the cameras, trying to keep her face hidden. Then, she and Tatsu clash, creating a whirlwind of motion so intense it looks like something out of a Dragon Ball fight. Tatsu accuses Yuki of pretending to care about Naka, claiming she doesn't understand her struggles. Yuki responds with force, knocking him down and running straight to Naka's side. Grabbing her hand, she tells her that she finally understands a little more about what it means to be a true friend, and Naka is overwhelmed by the gesture. Before Tatsu can strike again, the whistle blows, signaling the end of the game. Yokoya thinks they've won, until Riko points out that both Yuki and Naka are now in prison, meaning Tatsu has technically won. Yuki is left confused by the outcome, but the TV crew now wants to interview her. Naka realizes the risk and quickly creates a smokescreen. When the smoke clears, they find Taiga in the wolf costume and Yuki now disguised in the Katsuta suit. Then, Yokoya and the others swiftly move her away to avoid exposure. Later, Yuki reaffirms her friendship with Naka, but just then, Tatsu arrives, calling his sister home. When he sees Yuki again, his jealousy resurfaces as he feels threatened by the idea that Yuki might steal Naka's affection. Though confused by his intense reaction, Yuki tells Naka she's looking forward to seeing her again at school, and that promise leaves both girls smiling. That night, Yuki sits on the rooftop, and Yokoya joins her. He asks if she's upset about the loss. Yuki admits she was focused on winning at first, but now, she just feels butterflies, and Yokoya explains that the feeling is excitement. In that moment, Yuki realizes something, that in her old life as an assassin, she never had the luxury of enjoying tomorrow. But now, she can, and that makes all the difference. A few days later, Naka pays a visit to Yokoya's house, and she's there to show off her knife-throwing skills, which impresses everyone. Despite the compliments, she doesn't feel accomplished, especially compared to her brother Tatsu, who she admits is far more talented. Naka opens up about her discomfort with her life as a ninja, wishing instead to live like an ordinary girl. Yuki listens and quietly agrees, relating to that same desire for a simple life. Their shared feelings bring them closer, and when Yuki suggests they talk more in the future, Naka genuinely smiles at the idea. The moment is cut short by Grace, who suddenly appears and throws a jab at Yokoya, teasing that with Naka now around, his harem just got bigger. Yokoya brushes it off, calling her out for spouting nonsense. Before anyone can say more, a knife shoots through Grace's lollipop. Yuki apologizes, but everyone picks up on the jealousy behind her actions. Intrigued by Grace's calm reaction, Naka asks if she's like them, and Grace casually confirms that not only is she an assassin, but she also knows Naka belongs to the Hikage ninja family, information that catches Naka off guard. Yokoya asks why Grace is even there. She reveals she's heading to China soon for a mission, and there's a chance she might encounter Yuki's former organization and possibly get new info on Yuki's missing sister. As she prepares to leave, Grace throws out one last crude joke, telling Yokoya to start bumping bellies with Yuki before she gets back, which he immediately refuses. Naka then asks if Yokoya and Yuki are a couple, and while Yokoya scrambles to clear up that misunderstanding, Yuki stays silent, lost in thought. Yuki eventually reflects on how her life used to be simple, as she only had herself to worry about, but now, surrounded by people she cares for, especially Yokoya, her heart has expanded, and that realization brings her happiness. Yokoya and Naka are both moved, but Yokoya internally acknowledges that, to Yoki, he's more like family, not a romantic partner. Snow begins to fall, adding a peaceful backdrop to their gathering, and as they admire the weather, Yokoya receives a message from his estranged father, promising a return in the new year, a message that destroys his mood. The following day, the yard is blanketed in snow. Mochi jumps into it first, quickly followed by Yokoya. He builds a snowman, and Yuki, inspired, tries to make one too. Hers ends up looking a bit wild and messy, but Yokoya compliments her anyway, joking that it's an abstract. They laugh together until Mochi, with perfect timing, crashes into Yuki's snowman, reducing it to ruins. Heartbroken, Yuki tries to fix it, but when Yokoya tells her it's no use, her mood gets ruined. Just then, his phone rings, and it's his father. After the call, Yokoya tells Yuki he has to visit his family's house and asks her to watch over things. Before he heads out, Yuki stops him and asks if they can meet later. That evening, on his way back from the visit, Yokoya notices a small crowd gathered. Curious, he approaches and finds Yuki there, dressed casually in a way that makes his knees start shaking. She gently wraps a scarf around his neck and takes his hand, inviting him on a date. Yokoya fumbles for words, asking why the sudden invitation, and Yuki tells him Riko encouraged it, but she also just wants to cheer him up. She says seeing him sad makes her feel incomplete, and the honesty of her words makes Yokoya give in and agree. They walk hand in hand through the snow, enjoying the festive lights. Inside, though, Yokoya struggles. Despite the romantic setting, he tries to push away his feelings for Yuki, reminding himself that he still sees her as someone too innocent for him to pursue. The snowfall intensifies, and Yokoya comments on how much he loves snow and the atmosphere of the holiday. Yuki giggles, saying she loves hearing that, especially since her name literally means snow, and Yokoya's heart races at her words. After the date, Yokoya pulls Riko aside and asks whether she thinks Yuki has real feelings for him. Riko says it's possible Yuki isn't aware of them yet, and she proposes using a love compatibility quiz on her phone. Yokoya is skeptical, but Riko insists, saying her friend got together with her crush after taking it. She begins asking him questions about physical closeness, emotional moments, and even some awkwardly personal stuff. With every yes he gives, it dawns on him that he might be more in love with Yuki than he thought. But at the last question, whether Yuki's ever said she likes him, he says no, and their score is 96. Riko celebrates, convinced it's a done deal, but Yokoya quietly stresses about the 4% that's missing. Yuki suddenly appears, and Yokoya, still reeling from the quiz, gets tense. Riko suggests that Yuki take the test too, and she asks the same questions, and one by one, Yuki answers yes. With each answer, Yokoya's composure continues to crack. But at the final question, whether Yokoya has ever said he liked her, Yuki confidently says yes. That revelation sends Yokoya spiraling, while Riko is practically glowing, claiming she's one step closer to becoming her sister-in-law. Later, they all gather around the kotatsu for hot pot. Riko starts spilling old stories about how Yokoya used to trash the house just to spite their dad. Embarrassed, Yokoya tells her to shut it, not wanting Yuki to hear about his immature past. To get back at Riko, he begins kicking her under the table, but she doesn't respond. Confused, he keeps kicking until he looks under the kotatsu and realizes he's been kicking Yuki the whole time. Both of them freeze in mortified silence, and when Riko asks what's going on, they awkwardly dodge the question. She grins, saying they look like a couple keeping secrets together, and that's all it takes to make both Yokoya and Yuki completely fold. Yokoya continues to relive memories of their date, but those dreams blend into recollections of a forgotten past. In one memory, he remembers confessing his feelings to a girl only to be rejected. She had told him he didn't truly love her and that he was just trying to escape his loneliness. That moment left a scar on how Yokoya understands love, which makes him question his own feelings for Yuki. When he wakes up, he finds Yuki beside him, and as he quietly tries to step out of bed, Yuki wakes up, but he still makes his way outside to collect himself. He blames himself for letting her stay with him, after she begged him to sleep together because of her nightmares, knowing that her sleeping beside him has cost him nights of rest. She follows him, hoping to help, but Yokoya brushes it off with a half-hearted excuse about cleaning, something he knows doesn't even convince himself. While splashing water on his face, he admits to himself that he does have feelings for Yuki, but the memory of that earlier rejection keeps him from opening up, and he fears the possibility of being left behind again. Later, Yuki starts tidying up the place with an intense focus, determined to do better than before. As she mops, she's motivating herself to do better than she did before, until Mochi causes trouble. He disrupts her efforts, leaving her soaked in the process. She apologizes, even though it's clear that Mochi was to blame, and Yokoya scolds the dog, knowing full well what happened. As Yuki removes her outerwear, Yokoya catches a glimpse of the black lace she's wearing. His heart races, and he immediately flees the scene to calm his nerves, fully aware of how easily she affects him. While he's captivated by her, he still hesitates to say anything to her about his feelings. When he returns, he finds Yuki on her knees, ready to comfort him, and seeing her innocent expression makes him panic. He awkwardly says he's too embarrassed to lie on her lap, not realizing how that hurts her. Her smile fades, and soon after, Yuki begins to cry, something entirely new to her. She tries to stop, but the tears keep falling, leaving her confused and ashamed. Yokoya, feeling helpless, changes the subject and suggests she take a bath to avoid getting sick. Yuki silently agrees and walks to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Yokoya reflects on how poorly he handled her emotions. Over the following days, Yuki cries more than ever. She weeps over small things, like the dog barking, stray cats fighting, and even leaves falling from trees. None of it is her fault, but Yokoya has no idea how to help. Each night she still sleeps beside him, keeping him awake until the new year arrives. Then one day, Yuki looks for Yokoya, but instead finds a note saying he's gone out for a while. She walks the dog and heads to the local market for groceries, only to find everything closed for the holiday. With no other option, she visits a supermarket, a place she's never been to before, and is quickly overwhelmed with the options there. While struggling to navigate the aisles, a butcher offers her some roast beef, and she gratefully buys it for dinner. Back at home, she finds Yokoya making okonomiyaki, and coincidentally, he also bought roast beef, which causes Yuki to tear up again. Now they have too much, but they eat it all anyway. As she takes a bite of the rich, sauce-covered food, she cries once more. more, this time from how delicious it tastes. That night, Yokoya sleeps on the couch. He tells himself he needs to get his act together since his father is returning tomorrow. While he's asleep, Yuki gently places a blanket over him. The next morning, Riko shows up, ready for their New Year celebration, but Yokoya is still knocked out and her plans are ruined. When Yuki asks what's going on, Riko casually reveals that it's Yokoya's birthday. The news hits Yuki hard, and she begins to cry again, shocking Riko, who has never seen her this emotional. Yuki thinks something is wrong with her eyes, so she decides to stay home, and Riko respects that. Later, Yuki finds Yokoya's phone and sees a message from Naka, inviting them to the shrine. Wanting to go, Yuki heads there on her own and meets Naka. She admits she's unfamiliar with the shrine's customs, so Naka guides her through. They draw fortunes, and Naka feels happy to share this moment with Yuki. However, Yuki reads hers and sees a message saying she'll lose something, and she instantly fears it means she'll lose Yokoya. Sitting down with Naka, she opens up about her worries and how distant Yokoya has been, and her fear that he no longer needs her. The idea of being hated or left behind makes her cry again. Naka, wanting to comfort her, shares that she too sometimes can't hold back tears. She recalls some advice from her mother about how crying isn't always a sign of weakness, and sometimes it's just the sadness that's been bottled up, finally spilling out. She encourages Yuki to let it out, reminding her that a day will come when her smile returns. After letting her emotions settle, they both make wishes, and Yuki silently prays to always stay with the one she loves. Meanwhile, Yokoya's father finally arrives in Japan, and he tries calling his son, but Yokoya doesn't pick up, as he's still fast asleep, unaware of everything unfolding around him. As Yuki and Naka walk home, their minds are on one thing, figuring out what to get for Yokoya's upcoming birthday. Naka asks Yuki what Yokoya likes, and although fried pork comes to mind first, she suddenly remembers the action figures neatly displayed in his room. Inspired, they head to a nearby store to check if they can find something similar. Once inside, they come across the exact same figure line Yokoya owns. Naka points out that it's part of a gacha machine set, and when Yuki asks how to get the rare black variant, Naka explains she has to keep trying until she's lucky. Yuki throws coin after coin into the machine, but luck refuses to show up. After more than a dozen tries, frustration boils over, and she breaks down in tears from the weight of her failure. At that moment, a strange man notices her distress and offers to help. Yuki, still desperate, accepts. He begins to ramble about needing to dominate your foe mentally like he's Andrew Tate, and while Naka rolls her eyes at the bizarre advice, Yuki takes it seriously. She taps into an intense determination and channels her inner instinct. She steps up to the machine again, glares at it like it's a rival, and vows to conquer it. With newfound tension and energy, she inserts one last coin, and out comes the black action figure she's been after. Yuki thanks the man, who casually mentions she reminds him of his own son, who always cries when he loses. Back at home, Riko slaps Yokoya awake from his sleep and warns him that their father is returning soon. Groggy and confused, Yokoya notices a note left by Yuki and realizes he hasn't told her about their dad coming back. Riko scolds him for not talking to someone he lives with, but Yokoya brushes it off, arguing that living with someone doesn't always mean deep conversations. This triggers memories of his own parents. His mother vanished years ago, and when his father briefly reappeared, Yokoya was too scared to open up to him, as he was emotionally distant and cold. After that visit, his father left again, working overseas while a nanny raised Yokoya, and since then Yokoya has never found the courage to talk honestly with him. Then, a message from Naka arrives. She tells Yokoya how badly Yuki failed today and suggests he cheer her up. Moments later, Yuki walks in, and Riko greets her warmly but notices her dry, stiff expression, immediately sensing something is off. Yokoya tries to tell Yuki about their father's return, but halfway through he changes the topic. Deep down he realizes he's just afraid of how his father might affect Yuki, and of his own desire to shield her from that. He calls himself a coward for even thinking this way. Riko meanwhile praises him for finally showing some backbone and for becoming a real man. Their father finally shows up, and Riko throws herself at him, clearly happy, while Yokoya hangs back awkwardly. With some effort, Yokoya introduces Yuki, referring to her as the new maid in their household with a mysterious past. The moment his father sees her, recognition flashes across his face and he knows her real name, Shuei. Yuki thanks him for the help he gave her earlier that day, and as Yokoya prepares coffee, he watches, stunned, as the two chat comfortably about shared history and a previous assassin mentor Yuki once had. The father gives his condolences for the death of Yuki's former master, while Yokoya can only stand there silently, feeling like a stranger in his own home, and their easy conversation reminds him of the emotional gap he's always felt since his mother left. Riko starts asking their father about his knowledge of assassins, but he jokingly sidesteps her questions, something Yokoya immediately recognizes as his father's way of deflecting uncomfortable topics. That's when it hits him that he's been selfish, and all this time, the old man avoided truly understanding others because he never bothered to use words, to ask, or to even listen. Then the father casually announces that he has to leave again, and Riko brings up Yokoya's birthday, but the father says Yokoya never likes celebrating it anyway. He gives him a generic birthday wish and hands him a gift. As the car is being prepared for his departure, Yokoya stands frozen, uncertain certain. But remembering Yuki's strength from earlier, he decides to act. He stops his father before he leaves and asks if he can keep Yuki in the house. Instead of answering directly, his father throws the question back at him, asking Yokoya what he wants. With determination bubbling inside him, Yokoya declares that he wants Yuki to stay, and his father accepts the decision, quietly proud to see his son's growth. Yokoya feels something shift as he's finally spoken with sincerity. Before he can process it, his father calls his phone, asking to speak with Yuki on the phone. He wants to hear what she thinks of Yokoya, and she answers truthfully, saying he's been amazing for her. The father thanks her, saying she's the reason Yokoya is finally beginning to change. Moved, Yuki starts crying. She asks Yokoya if he wants to go see the night view, and when he agrees, she picks him up effortlessly and heads up to the rooftop with ease. Up there, with the city glowing around them, Yuki hands him his birthday present, the action figure she worked so hard to win. Even though it's a little broken, Yokoya accepts it anyway, feeling touched by the gesture, and it's in this quiet moment that he decides to finally open up. He tells Yuki about his father, the man he once idolized, who changed after his mother left, and how that left their relationship in pieces. For 10 years he's avoided fixing it, but with Yuki he doesn't want the same distance. Mustered by every ounce of his awkward charm, he asks Yuki to become a part of his family. As he panics internally, Yuki sheds tears, not from pain but from happiness. She accepts with warmth in her voice, saying she would love to be part of his family. Overcome by emotion, Yokoya confesses that he loves her, and there's a heavy pause between them, until Yuki smiles and tells him she loves him too. Later, back in his room, Yokoya drops to his knees overwhelmed. He looks at the figure Yuki gave him and feels a rare sense of peace. But then it hits him that Yuki said she loves him as family, and realizing that he can't get freaky in the sheets with her, he sobs again. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Yuki is chopping cabbage when her heart starts pounding, and she begins to understand something important. Just as Yokoya loves her, she loves him too, not just as family, but something deeper.
That's suspicious.